welcome back. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? 3 videos today, possibly. 3 videos possibly today. We have 10 genius F1 innovations that were outlawed. Now, if these innovations were cheating, I'm all for it, you know what I mean? You guys know, girls and guys, you guys know. We don't cheat. We don't cheat. You know what I mean? We don't cheat on our tests. We don't cheat in life. We don't cheat with our, girlfriend or boyfriend. We do everything the right way. Okay. Maybe some that's cat. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to the video. Now it's gonna be interesting to see why these innovations were outlawed. If there was a specific reason it was outlawed, like I said, I'll understand. But if they were just outlawed because they were just too good, that's stupid. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the video, man. But before the video starts, if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Now let's get started.
One is all about pushing the
Also, shout out to my boy Leo for recommending this video.
boundaries of performance, but some innovations
Shout out to the
go
race.
too far. Over the years, F1's regulations have become ever more restrictive, yet still designed
Like I said, I don't know all the regulations, so I will learn some of these like innovations or whatever. So yeah.
geniuses find creative ways to make the cars faster, often with the result that their ideas are, sooner or later, outlawed. We picked out 10 innovations that had a profound impact on F1, some very short-lived, some longer lasting, but they were all eventually consigned to the history books thanks to being banned by the FIA. Let us know in the comments which of these ideas you think should have lived on, and whether F1 needs to reverse the trend of the past 40 years by adopting freer regulations that will permit more new ideas and innovations.
But shouldn't that be the point though, of allowing these new ideas and innovations to come into the sport to help drivers or the teams? So why ban them? Why outlaw if they can be helpful to the sport? The fuck?
A crude form of active suspension was first raced in F1 in 1983, with Nigel Mansell's Lotus 92 running with a pioneering system designed by Peter Wright in the Brazilian and Long Beach Grand Prix.
Ew, why does it look like
Lotus
that?
made
That car
active
is
suspension
ugly.
a road car only
That's just me.
project for
The
several
back,
years
just the
after
back.
that,
The back
but
looks
brought
ugly.
back a new version of the system in 1987. Ayrton Senna claimed the first victory for an active car in the 1987 Monaco Grand Prix, following it up with another victory on the streets of Detroit.
Ooh.
Williams also had a system in development which claimed its first win in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza that year, with Nelson Piquet driving. It wasn't until 1992 that what we think of as active suspension, whereby each corner of the car could be controlled electronically to hold the car in the perfect position aerodynamically and optimise the ride height, was perfected. It was then banned at the end of 1993 as part of the Gizmo ban that also eliminated traction control and ABS.
What? I'm already pissed off.
Four-wheel steering was banned before anyone raced with it as part of the electronic Gizmo bans that kicked in at the end of 1993. But even after that decision, Benetton pushed on with developing its system that, while never raced, did run in testing and was briefly used in practice at the end of 1993 in the specially designated Benetton B193C. The hydraulically actuated rear steering allowed the rear wheels 2 degrees of freedom in either direction, but was never refined enough to produce a lap time gain. As you can imagine, the drivers found it made the car oversteery, hence the decision not to race the system in the brief window before it was banned.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mercedes knew that its dual-axis steering, better known as DAS, only had a shelf life of 1 season when it first raced the system in 2020. The idea was ingenious, with the driver pulling back on the steering wheel to adjust the toe of the front wheels, then pushing it forward to restore the normal settings. This was used primarily as a means to improve front tyre warm-up. The FIA accepted that the concept was legal in a revised form after Mercedes originally proposed to run a lever-actuated DAS in 2019 that was rejected. The FIA insisted that it would only be permissible if it was activated by the steering wheel itself. This is logical given the principle of the steering wheel being permitted to change the geometry of the front wheels is well established. Hence, Red Bull's protest at the first race of 2020 was rejected. But amid fears that DAS would simply cost teams money and everyone would be forced to adopt it, the FIA had already ensured the regulations prevented DAS being used in 2021. This meant that Mercedes was the only team ever to run with DAS.
That's weird.
Renault first started
weird.
running what is
The
more
only
accurately
team-
called the
The only team to run with DAS, seeing how, it was a bit helpful, especially how they were trying to use it for the COVID season. That's pretty weird to me, how they was the only team. Nobody else wanted to try it, experiment with it, test it, play with it.
tuned mass damper in 2005.
Mass damp.
This was a mass of 5 to 10 kilos, which was tunable to the specific circuit, located in a small cylinder between two springs that was placed towards the rear of the nose cone of the car. The purpose of this damper was to react to the vertical forces created by hitting bumps, undulations and curbs. This improved the stability of the car and held it in a consistent aerodynamic window.
So what's wrong with that?
This was particularly beneficial to Renault, which had struggled with the raised front wing regulations of 2005. The mass damper settled the front of the car dramatically, allowing the drivers to be more aggressive over the curbs and made the front wing work better.
That's good.
Once rival teams learned of the mass damper, they all tried to copy it with varying success.
Okay.
Ferrari introduced its own mass damper, but it couldn't gain the same advantage thanks to the fact it ran the stiffer sidewall Bridgestone tyres. The mass damper was more beneficial when working with a more compliant Michelin rubber, leading to Ferrari lobbying against it. The mass damper was eventually banned for good after the 2006 Hungarian Grand Prix.
Oh, that's lame. The fan
Brabham
car.
BT46B, better known as the fan car, entered one World Championship race, the 1978 Swedish Grand Prix, and won it from pole position in the hands of Niki Lauda. The fan car was design genius Gordon Murray's answer to the ground effect Lotus 79 that dominated 1978. The chunky Alfa Romeo flat 12 engine left insufficient space to maximise the Venturi tunnels needed to generate the formidable downforce of the leading ground effect cars. The answer was to strap a fan onto the rear of the car that was claimed to be there to cool a radiator mounted above the engine.
First thing first, thank God that they got rid of this. Okay, we didn't even finish, Buddy's description of like the fan car, but that's probably the ugliest design I've ever seen on a car. What the hell are you doing putting like a fan on the back of a car? Like, ain't there like just extra weight on the car, stuff like that? Personally, that's disgusting. If one of like the owners came to me, I'm driving for like Ferrari, for example, or Mercedes, and but the owner, crew, the big guy, whatever he's talking about, hey Chaz, we're thinking about adding a fan to the back of the car. First thing I'm gonna ask Buddy is why. Second thing I'm gonna ask him is it going to hold my car back? And then I'm gonna ask him, hell no. No, if it's not beneficial, no. Plus, it looks nasty. It looks disgusting. You got, design it a certain type of way, then make sure, it works properly. No. Ugh. But let's finish it out. Let's actually finish it out and see what, the details.
That fan also happened to suck air from beneath the car,
Yeah.
creating a powerful low pressure area in harness with the side skirts.
Okay.
The fan car was legal, and the argument taken by Brabham was that a greater proportion of the fan's power was indeed used to cool the radiator than to generate the downforce.
But that's just my opinion. You guys may have a different opinion than mine. That's just my opinion. It doesn't look good. But you guys are probably like, Chaz, the cars don't have to look good, for it to race. Yeah, I understand that. But, your boy wants to ride, He wants to look good, when he rides the car. But like I did say, if it's beneficial, I'm all for it.
It was also not technically made illegal in 1978, with team boss Bernie Ecclestone agreeing to withdraw it and return to the conventional BT46. However, there's no doubt it would have been made illegal immediately had the team not done so voluntarily, and subsequent wording and understanding of the technical regulations clearly prevented any further fan cars. The Fduct is coming up next, but first a quick thank you for watching this video.
Good.
Our output would not be possible without your support, so if you haven't already done so and want to make sure you don't miss any of our F1 videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel. And to be told the moment there's something new to watch, chime the notifications bell.
The Fduct.
When the McLaren MP426 first appeared ahead of the 2010 season, many spotted a letterbox-shaped intake at the front of the chassis. This was the famous Fduct, which directed airflow to the rear wing, but when the driver covered a hole inside the cockpit with their elbow, the airflow switched and was directed across the top element of the rear wing, stalling it. This cut drag and increased straight-line speed. It was an ingenious idea, but was challenged by rivals on the grounds it was a movable aerodynamic device. But as it was simply a case of the driver moving their elbow and the airflow itself changing, it was perfectly legal. Rivals scrambled to copy it, with different cars activating the
Okay, how are rivals going to hate on a car's, design and then try to copy it? So you're hating, but you want to, do it.
Fduct switch by different means,
Does that
using
make sense?
variously hands, elbows and legs. Sauber, Ferrari and Red Bull introduced their Fducts in very quick succession. The Fduct was banned for 2011 amid concerns that teams would develop ever more elaborate versions requiring drivers to activate different fluidic switches depending on the corner characteristics.
Like I said, don't cheat. If they're doing this to cheat, I ain't going for that.
The Tyrrell P34 was developed in the utmost secrecy, and it shocked the world when the Derek Gardner designed machine first appeared in September 1975. It didn't race until the following season, but in the 1976 Swedish Grand Prix, it became the only Grand Prix car with anything other than four wheels to win, in the hands of Jody.
I'm sorry, I keep pausing. Why does the Swedish Grand Prix always have some new innovations? 78, 76. Like, if you want to, bring out something new, just do it at the Swedish Grand Prix.
Schecter. The idea was simple. By reducing the size of the front wheels and running four smaller ones, this would reduce the lift and drag created by conventional, larger front wheels. This had both aerodynamic and straight-line speed advantages and created a car that could work very well, particularly on smoother circuits. But there were problems. Goodyear didn't put a huge amount of development work into the tyres mounted on the 10-inch wheel rims at the front of the car. There was also the problem that it was possible to lock the four wheels on the front axles independently, playing havoc with the car dynamics. The Tyrrell P34 was the only six-wheeler to race in F1 before they were banned for 1983 as a result of the outlawing of four-wheel drive, following experiments by March and Williams to run six-wheelers with four rear wheels.
Plus, pit stops have to take out an extra four
The
tires.
McLaren brake steer system, also referred to as the fiddle brake, was revealed by legendary F1 photographer Darren Heath. He spotted the rear brake on one side of the car glowing mid-corner, and when Mika Hakkinen retired from the 1997 Luxembourg Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, Heath took a photo inside the cockpit of the abandoned car, revealing the famous extra pedal. The concept was simple. Conceived by Steve Nichols and worked on by Paddy Lowe, the system allowed the rear brake on one side of the car to be applied mid-corner, which side could be altered depending on track characteristics. For 1998, the system evolved to allow the drivers to select which side rear brake was activated using a switch. But brake steer was ruled illegal at the second race of the season in Brazil, because it was effectively a form of four-wheel steering.
That's interesting.
The double diffuser was part of the famous Brawn package that dominated the early stages of 2009 and went on to win both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. The rules permitting the architecture of the double diffuser weren't in question, but the problem was providing the necessary airflow to make this work. The solution, originally conceived by a Honda aerodynamic working group, was to create holes in the floor where there should have been none in the transition between the reference plane, the lowest part of the car's bodywork, and the step plane, 50mm higher than the reference plane and running down the car 250mm either side of the centre line. The rules stated that the transition between the reference and step plane had to be solid, hard and impervious, but this interpretation allowed multiple transitions with gaps between them to supply the airflow. Williams and Toyota also hit upon the concept, with the rest having to clone the design before double diffusers were outlawed ahead of 2011. Using exhaust gases to energise the rear diffuser was not a new idea when Red Bull brought it back in 2010, having paved the way by repositioning its exhaust exit in 2009. The concept was first used on the Renault RE30 in 1983, and teams used it well into the 1990s. But when Red Bull brought back exhaust blowing, it began a lengthy battle with the FIA, which repeatedly attempted to outlaw the practice by modifying the exhaust regulations.
Typical FIA.
In 2011, Red Bull simply
always gotta ruin something.
Relocated its exhaust lower to the floor of the car to get around changes. A brief attempt was made in the middle of 2011 to ban the trick aero maps that allowed both cold blowing, whereby the throttles in the engine stayed open to allow air to be pumped through, but the fuel and spark was cut, save for the down changes, and hot blowing, which involved the ignition being retarded and fuel fired directly into the exhaust, where it ignited and energised the exhaust gas flow. But this proved unworkable.
Yeah.
So for 2012, the exhausts were moved to a higher position, only for Red Bull and McLaren to pioneer the Coanda exhaust, named for the Coanda effect, the tendency of a jet flow to attach to surfaces to get the exhaust flow to the diffuser area.
Yeah.
It was only the arrival of the V6 turbo hybrid engines in 2014 and another repositioning of the exhaust at the centre and rear of the car that effectively ended the exhaust blown era. But to this day, teams still use the limited freedom to use the gas flow to create small aero effects. Which band innovations are your favourites? And what outlawed designs that we left out also?
I think my favorite, I don't know if I have a favorite one. I think my favorite one is the fan, because it just looks nasty. Yeah, you know, it'll help, like, I think it helps like the drag air, like, you know, like the driving, the air filter, whatever, stuff like that. But I mean, these are all pretty interesting. I will admit, these are all pretty interesting, and hearing like the reasons why they were suspended is pretty interesting as well. I mean, but y'all let me know what was y'all favorite. You guys don't get like a sub. Comment below, you guys thoughts and reactions.